And greetings. Welcome once again to Maxims of Law, Part 8. Let's get right down to where we left off last time. Okay, looks like Stream Health's doing okay. And if we get good audio out there, just give me a heads up on that. And let's get to it. As Audit Them says. Okay, today we're starting on freedom and liberty. See also personal rights, natural rights. Whenever the interpretation of liberty is doubtful, the answer should be on the side of liberty. Now that is something we should all remember. Whenever it's doubtful, the interpretation should always err on the side of liberty. Liberty is that natural power of doing whatever one pleases, except that which is restrained by the force or by law or force. So let's look at this. It's the natural power of doing whatever one pleases. So natural power, inherent power, right? Except that which is restrained by law or force. So interesting. Liberty is an inestimable thing, a thing above price. So we can't put a price on liberty. Freedom does not admit, let me get this little highlighter going here. Freedom does not admit evaluation. The body of a free man does not admit evaluation. So you can't put a price on a man, a free man, that is. Liberty is more favored than all things or anything. Right, JK, welcome. Oops. Okay. He who is to be judged. Impious, wait, hang on, I can't read that. There we go. Impious, and cruel, who does not favor liberty. So he is to be judged impious and cruel, who does not favor liberty. All free men, all men are free men or slaves. All right, guys, all men are free men or slaves. Take your pick. Natural liberty is the power of acting as one thinks fit, without any restraint or control, unless by the law of nature. So again, we're referring to natural law here, as we've done before in these maxims. It is a wretched state of slavery which subsists where the law is vague or uncertain. Hey, we got James Allen Cooper. Welcome. Welcome back. All right, now we're on to gifts. So, he who gives a thing by mistake has a right to recover it back, but he who gives designedly with a knowledge of facts, it is a gift. One who gives and yet retains does not give effectually. Or one who gives yet retains gives nothing. Clandestine gifts are always suspicious. No man can give that which he has not. Remember that one. That is considered to be given which is granted when no law compels. The manner gives law to a gift. A bequest is not rendered void by an erroneous description. The will of the donor manifestly expressed in his deed of giving a gift is to be observed. So that ties into this 48G. A bequest is not rendered void by an erroneous description. Description. And again, it's the will of the donor manifestly expressed in his deed of giving a gift is to be observed. So erroneous descriptions and manifest expression. So these are the fine points to be aware of. Let's continue. A gift is said to be pure and simple when no condition or qualification is annexed. No conditions is a gift. That's when it's pure and simple. Whatever is received according to the intention of the recipient. The intention of the recipient, not the giver. Can't compel a gift, huh? Custom gives law to the gift. A thing is said to be given when it is yielded otherwise than by virtue of right. An example, when the receiving party has no right to the thing. So it is given when someone gives it up otherwise than by a virtue of right. Nice. He who gives nothing, who has nothing. Well, that seems pretty obvious. That which one has given, knowing it not to be due, with the intention of redeeming it, he cannot recover back. So, that which one has given, knowing it not to be due. So, giving something due with the intention of redeeming it, you're not going to be able to redeem it. Cannot recover it back. One who knowingly pays what is not due is supposed to have done it with the intention of making a gift. To present is no more than to give or offer on the spot. As to present is no more than to give or to offer on the spot. So present to present means you need to be present on the spot. Interesting there. Nice way to really detail the words. Okay. Oops, what happened here? There we go. A gift is not presumed. No one is presumed to give. And before we go any further on this, I want to make sure that everyone understands this is just here for entertainment, educational purposes, not to be construed as any kind of professional, legal, lawful advice in any way for your personal, professional life. So do not consider this anything other than the entertainment, educational broadcast it is, and don't do this at home. Among other methods of acquiring property, a great, much used, and celebrated method is that of a gift. It's important with trusts. Among other methods of acquiring property, a great, much used, and celebrated method is that of a gift. A gift is perfected, made complete, by the possession of the receiver. A gift is incomplete until possession is delivered. Nice. He who has a right to give has a right to dispose of the gift. The donor never ceases to possess until the donee begins to possess. As we said, it's the receiving of the gift that makes it the act. It is necessary that a certain thing be brought into the gift, or made the subject of the conveyance, the transfer. All right, let's proceed on to the next section. God, divinity, and religion. Where the divinity is insulted, the case is unpardonable. Human things never prosper where divine things are neglected. Wow. No one is obliged to accuse himself unless before God. Reason is a ray of the divine light. It is more serious to hurt divine than temporal majesty. Man, these are some good maxims here. All right, let's continue here. That is the highest law which favors religion. That consideration is strongest which determines in favor of religion. No one was ever a great man without some divine inspiration. That's pretty good there. No one was ever a great man without some divine inspiration. The Christian religion is a part of the common law. No man warring for God should be troubled by secular business. No man warring for God should be troubled by secular business. What is given to the church is given to God. That which is divine law is repugnant to society and is void. Wow. All right, let's continue on. Ooh, good faith. Let's see what maxims we have here on good faith. I want to make sure everyone's still out there. The stream is still holding up, it seems. And if the audio is good, just give me a heads up there in the chat so I know it's coming through clear. And let's continue on good faith here. Good faith does not suffer the same thing to be demanded twice. And in making satisfaction for a debt or demand, it is not allowed. All right, thank you, sir. So good faith does not suffer the same thing to be demanded twice. And in making satisfaction for a debt or demand, it is not allowed to be done more than once. Good faith. It's great. By good faith, a possessor makes the fruits consumed his own. Wow. By good faith, a possessor makes the fruits consumed his own. Good faith demands what it is agreed upon shall be done. Nice. Good faith must be observed. Good faith does not allow us to demand twice the payment of the same thing, which is back to here. Good faith does not suffer the same thing to be demanded twice. So let's proceed from here. A possessor in good faith is only liable for that which he himself has obtained. So the possessor in good faith is only liable for that which he himself has obtained. Again, we're back to the possessor here being liable, right? All right, we're on to government. The government cannot load a citizen with the imposition against his will or consent. And that's similar to taxes, I believe. The government is to be subject to the law, for the law makes the government. Obedience makes government, not the name by which it is called. We should let some of the public official servants read this one. The laws themselves desire that they should be governed by right. No one should hold two offices at the same time. And it doesn't say two government offices, it says two offices, which is another interesting concept here. All right, let's proceed. An ambassador fills the place of the king or nation by whom he is sent, and is to be honored as he whose plate he fills. The absence of him who is employed in the service of the state should not be prejudicial to him nor to others. So the absence of him who is employed in the service of the state should not be prejudicial to him nor to others. The minister of the law is not bound in the execution of his office, either to fly or retreat. Individual liberties are antecedent to all government. Remember this one. Individual liberties are antecedent to all government. It means your liberties come before any authority claimed by government. Where the executive power not to have a right of restraining the encroachments of the legislative body, the latter would become despotic. And that comes from Montesquieu, the spirit of laws. So let's see this 51J again. And this is about the division of powers, right? In the spirit of laws, where the executive power not to have a right of restraining the encroachments of the legislative body, that's the lawmaking body, the latter, the lawmaking body, would become despotic. So we need an executive power to restrain encroachments of the lawmaking body. That's where the veto power comes in. Beautiful stuff from Montesquieu. The law is not to be violated by those in government. Now, how is this one so easily forgotten is my question. The law is not to be violated by those in government. So we say keep the individual separate from the individual person. I guess you could, it would depend on which individual we're talking about in the law or the maxim here. But person isn't necessarily the people, but it can be. And individual is just something that can't be divided into something further, so it would be, I guess, applicable to the context. All right, well, let's continue. A second here, get that to clear. There we go. All right. Lapse of time does not bar the Commonwealth. Men must turn square corners when they deal with the government. And that's from Rock Island Railroad versus the U.S. Favors from government often carry with them an enhanced measure of regulation. All political power is inherent in the people by decree of God. Thus none can exist except it be derived from them. And that's an American maxim there, buddies. All political power is inherent in the people by decree of God. Thus, none can exist except it be derived from them. So no political power can exist unless it is derived from the people. The main objective of government is the protection and preservation of personal rights, private property, and public liberties, and upholding the law of God. And that's another beautiful American maxim. Let's continue. A frequent recurrence to fundamental principles and a firm adherence to justice, virtue, and original law are indispensably necessary to preserve the blessings of liberty and good government. Great stuff here. A frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. A recurrence, get this here, a recurrence to fundamental principles and a firm adherence to justice, virtue, and original law are indispensably necessary. These are essential to preserve the blessings of liberty and good government. I can't think of a more beautiful maxim than that one right there. And of course, that's one from our great land here, an American maxim. Let's continue. An usurpation is the exercise of power, which another has a right to. So tyranny is the exercise of power beyond right, which nobody can have a right to. And that comes from Locke. Let's read this again. An usurpation is the exercise of power, which another has a right to. So tyranny is the exercise of power beyond right, which nobody can have a right to. And just for clarity, in case in this context here, and I know Locke is quite hard to read, but to usurp is to take by force, usually illegally, or take the position of power. In I guess an older sense, to encroach on, infringe on, is to usurp. So in this context here, usurpation is the exercise of power, which another has a right to. So tyranny is the exercise of power beyond right. So is that right mean there's a consent to that usurpation, perhaps, in the use of power, the exercise of power? Tyranny is that exercise of power beyond right, which nobody can have a right to. So again, Locke is a hard read, but these maxims like this are good enough for us to try to get a glimpse into some of the wisdom that can be gleaned from him. All right, let's continue. We're on to grants and permission. All right. So, measure gives validity to the grant. When anything is granted to another, that also is granted without which the thing granted would be of no effect or cannot exist. So when something's granted, that also is granted without which the thing granted would be of no effect or cannot exist. When anything is granted to another. So that's an interesting one there too. That also is granted without which the thing granted would be of no effect or cannot exist. So every grant is to be interpreted most strongly against the grantor, which is another interesting one right there too. Hey, you have rights, cops have duties. Yes, services are not to only be offered, but must be provided to the people free of charge. Otherwise, what is the point of that activity, right? Why would you pay for a service that's not helping you? All right, there we go. All right, let's proceed. Permission is a license to do a thing or an authority to do an act. Without such authority, would have been unlawful. So that's permission is a license to do a thing or an authority to do an act, which without such authority would have been unlawful. So license is permission to do a licentious behavior, something unlawful. It is not everything which is permitted that is honorable. See, there it is again. Licentious behavior can be permitted, although it's not honorable. All the gullible sheep tell the public servants not very professional when they are not professionals. That's true. They are either servants of the public, we the people, the beneficiary. They're also sometimes when they're employees are just in an occupation, not a profession. The radical customers, yeah, the radical customers are the problem. The radical consumers. We the people are the beneficiary. Correct. We need to assert that rule as we the people. The right of the grantor. He who is permitted to do the greater may with greater reason do the less, but with greater reason. See this? The greater. He who is permitted to do the greater may with greater reason do the less. What a great maxim. The right of the grantor being extinguished, the right granted is extinguished. Now, this is a good one here. He who gives an end gives the means to that end. Interesting one here. You can't burden people with an end without giving them the means, the resources to do it. That which is granted or reserved in a certain specified form must be taken as it is granted and will not be permitted to make the subject of any adjustment or compensation on the part of the grantee. So we're back to the grant or reserved in a certain specified form must be taken as it is and will not be permitted to be made the subject of any adjustment or compensation on the part of the grantee. Interesting. So the grantor is the one that is permitted to make any kind of adjustments, not the grantee. All right, well, let's proceed from here. Okay. That which is permitted only at a loss is not permitted to be done. So that which is permitted only at a loss is not permitted to be done. So no permission for loss. Interesting. So it must be an apositive type of situation for permitting. Permit is to allow by passive consent or not hindering, or to grant leave to by express consent or authorization. If a man grant that which is not his, the grant is void. And that goes back to the other one we saw here. He who gives, it's not on this page. The maxims, yeah, they're very good. And these are, of course, English translations for some of these that aren't even in English. Of course, the American maxims are. All right, let's proceed from here. We're on to guardian. Guardians, see also inheritance, minor, legal capacity. A guardian can make the estate of an existing heir under his guardianship better, not worse. A guardian ought not to make money out of the guardianship of his ward. Wow. If a guardian do fraud to his ward, he shall be removed from his guardianship. That guardianship is secure, which is entrusted to itself alone. Okay, let's proceed from here. Not too much on the guardian. We're going to get right to homes, house, and residence. Residence creates domicile. It is settled that that is to be considered the home of each one of us, where he may have his habitation and account books. And where he has made an establishment of his business. Once again, let's read this here. Residence creates domicile, and it is considered it is settled that that is to be considered the home of each one of us, where he may have his habitation and account books, and where he has made an establishment of his business. So that's a pretty powerful one there. If you're running a business from your home, then that seems to be your domicile. The maxims are that which is so common that anyone could know them in most cases. It is the legal that is being enforced in place of the lawful that is a problem today. The problem is that the maxims aren't so common, but they are good sense, and that's what has to be learned. And that's where the legal part comes in, that they have to learn this good sense. In other words, to apply their legal practice to the law of the land. There's nothing more sacred, more inviolate than the house of every citizen. Every man's house is his castle, and even though the winds of heaven may blow through it, government officials cannot enter it. A citizen cannot be taken by force from his house to be conducted before a judge or to prison. Wow. Every man's house should be a perfectly safe refuge. A man's dwelling house is his castle and fortress, not merely for his own personal protection, but also for the protection of his family and his property therein. Nice. A home is a social unit formed by a family living together in one dwelling. Nice. All right. And we're on to human nature and faults. Let's begin. Human nature does not change with time or environment. To him who nothing is enough, nothing is base. Here we go. He is insane who, reason being thrown away, does everything with violence and rage. Anger is a short insanity. If you be moved to anger by insults, you publish them. If despised, they are forgotten. All right, let's read this one once again. If you be moved to anger by insults, you publish them. If despised, they are forgotten. He acts with guile, who demands that which he will have to return. To cover reproach with reproach is to lay mud upon mud. All right. I think we came across similar maxims earlier too. All right, let's continue to identity and to identify. From a great number of signs or marks, true identity is ascertained. From a great number of signs or marks, a great number, true identity is ascertained. That's why we can't only see things online or digital representations. We need a number of signs or marks for true identity. He who cannot be known from himself may be known from his associate. Interesting there. That could be guilt by association too. Identity of a thing means the sameness in all that constitutes the objective reality of a thing. So objectiveness, what's out there, not inside your mind. So the identity of a thing means the sameness in all that constitutes the objective reality of a thing. That's the identity. Identity ordinarily connotes exactness. All right, this is some good stuff here. And we're on to ignorance. Also knowledge and error, which we've already gone over. The error. Ignorance of those things which one is bound to know excuses not. It is a rule that everyone is prejudiced by his ignorance of law, but not by his ignorance of fact. And we came over this one before. It is a rule that everyone is prejudiced by his ignorance of law, but they're not prejudiced by their ignorance of fact. In fact, it's hard to find guilt when someone is ignorant of just the fact. Ignorance of law excuses no one, for all are bound to know the law. Here we go. Ignorance of fact excuses or is grounds of relief. Acts done and contracts made under mistake or ignorance of a material fact are voidable and relievable in law and equity. Okay. Let's proceed. It is ignorance of the law when we do not know our rights. It is ignorance of the law when we do not know our rights. Ignorance of the fact excuses. Ignorance of the law excuses not. Every man must be taken to be cognizant of the law. Otherwise, there is no saying to what extent the excuse of ignorance may not be carried. A mistaken point of law is, in criminal cases, no sort of defense, and in civil cases, ignorance of the law, with a full knowledge of the facts, furnishes no ground, either in law or equity, to rescind agreements or reclaim money paid or set aside solemn acts of the parties. Okay, here comes a really good one. Law assists the ignorant. Assists. Ignorance or want of skill is considered a fault. An example, a negligence for which one who professes the skill is responsible. See, if you profess a skill when there is a want of skill, that is a fault, and that's negligence. Oh, some good stuff here. Ignorance of one's right does not prejudice the right. So ignorance of the right, if you have no knowledge of the right, it does not prejudice the right itself. So the knowledge of the right, the ignorance of it, should not change the prejudice of the right. So There we go. We'll leave it off on this one here because this has been a good stream here. We're going to be on to the next section next time, which will be inheritance, heir, and descent. See also property rights, marriage, and wills. So we'll be over this one on the next one, and I think we covered some really important ones here. I'll leave with the in reference to the one we're on right now with what we're talking about here, ignorance. As the great Nikola Tesla said, ignorance is the greatest evil in the world. So with that, I would like to say thank you all for being here and not being ignorant to these great maxims of law. And as we go through this journey learning them, I believe that we're all will be able to express our rights, not be ignorant of our rights, and hold accountable those that are entrusted with the authority of the government and the law so that everybody can live with their personal liberties to the fullest. With that, I thank you all for being here. I want to say much love for you all to participate with me on this journey, and let's continue on the next one, and I'll see you then. Peace out.